Welcome to the Glenn Mercer Show. You can find us across all your favorite podcast platforms. You could find us on YouTube, and please remember to subscribe. You can find us at realmeneatplants.com. This podcast is brought to you by firstseedfoods.com. That is healthy, oil free, ghee free Indian food, vegan Indian food without the oil. I love me my Indian food, but I can't stand eating all that oil in the Indian restaurant. So this food arrives at your door, frozen, and you get like a week's worth of food for a reasonable price. Go to firstseedfoods.com, put in Glen 10 for $10 off
Wow.
your first order. I'm eager to talk to my guest today, who I've never met before. Joe Gagnon is an ultra endurance athlete, as am I, but I just don't do it. I just do that in my own mind. He's an ultra endurance athlete, he's an author and CEO entrepreneur. Joe, welcome to the show.
Glenn, looking forward to our conversation.
Well, your new book is called Living Intentionally, and I have been reading it. Do you have a copy to hold up there?
I do. Here we go. Living intentionally, going to be available
Living
August.
Intention. And it is kind of a book about mindset. Wouldn't you say it's about getting your thoughts in a healthy place, as well as
Mhm.
getting your body in a healthy place in order to make progress?
Yeah. I think that, intention starts with having a defined purpose in life, a why, understanding what the pillars of building a strong and resilient system are, pillars of exercise and mindset and nutrition and sleep and community. It's about understanding that on our journey, there could be some discomfort or challenge or even suffering, but that's all part of the growth path that we would want to be on in our lives so we can thrive. How we fit into our community broadly, the ripple effect we make when we make good choices. Uh, and then, thinking about, the longer term legacy of our lives and, every moment we have, we're establishing ourselves and building ourselves. And I think that being conscious about that or intentional really matters. And I would say, like, the choices we make are the life we create. So let's be intentional about it.
Well, one of the choices you made, which you write about in Living Intentionally, is you chose to run 6 marathons, 6 days in a row on 6 continents.
Yes.
Now, I searched my memory and also old journals I have, I reviewed. I have never done that.
Mm.
I have never run 6 marathons, 6 days in a row on 6 continents.
Yeah.
And the really amazing thing about that is not just the running of the 6 marathons, 26.2 miles, 6 days in a row, but you did 6 international flights, 6 days
Yeah.
in a row. The endurance involved in doing 6 marathons,
Yeah.
doing 6 international flights 6 days in a row. That's
Yeah.
amazing. How
Yeah.
did you
Oh,
come up with the endurance for that?
well, yeah, it's a great question. When I sort of dreamt up the idea, I think it came off the foundation that, if we picked my work life and my personal life and integrated them, I had been traveling around the world. I'd flown near on 5 million miles around the world. I'd been to 45 different countries. I sort of had a sense of what these overnight flights were like, but you would take one a week, maybe. You wouldn't
Right.
take six in a row. I had been a pretty solid runner. I've run at the time, I had run quite a few marathons, and I was actually really looking to lean deeply into what, this idea of what human potential is like. Like, what would make me feel uncomfortable, and yet you'd go do it? And could you build a plan? And then could you make it all happen? And I felt like when I was looking for ideas, the traditional, you can climb Mount Everest, maybe you could run across America, maybe you could row across the Atlantic. but all of them had this little bit of a problem. And like, you got to stop working and take off your job and sort of like, and I wanted to sort of do this while I was, still being CEO of a company and able to then have this pretty intense experience in a very concentrated period of time. So the design sort of made sense to me when I finally realized that this was possible. Then you actually don't even know where you should start and how you go from where to where. It's not like this, you open up the internet and it tells you exactly. But I wanted to start in Sydney. I had a lot of friends in Australia. Then your next choice is if you're going to go to the next continent, is it Asia? Is it Africa? Where is it? And where do you go? And then as you picked each new point, then you had to then figure out how you go from there. So I went Sydney to Singapore, and then Singapore, like, okay, I'm going to go to Africa next. Where do I go? Turns out I went to South Africa. From there, I had a pretty good sense in Europe. While I had a lot of friends, I wanted to go to London because I'd spent a lot of time there. Flew to London, and from London, you got to go to South America. That was the longest flight to Sao Paulo. And throughout these flights, Glenn, I sat in coach, and I had a middle seat on that flight. And yeah, it was, think about this. For 6 straight days, I did not lay down once.
Hmm.
I did sleep a couple hours a night, probably two, sitting in that chair. And then, I had to figure out where I wanted to end. And I had some friends in LA, and found it sort of fun to run along the Pacific. Uh, but it all had to work. Like if a plane didn't take off, like it was over. Like the whole thing was a bit
Right,
magical. You had to both run, you had to make it to the airport, you couldn't be late. I mean, it was like so many dependencies. So when I
right,
was done, it was a little bit of pinch me, like, wow, I'm really here. This actually worked. This crazy
right.
idea. So it was fun. I met some extraordinary people, and more stories and experiences from one week that you could have in a lifetime.
Well, each marathon you ran in under 4 hours,
Yeah.
and I believe you are the only person alive to run 6 marathons in 6 days on 6 continents.
Yeah.
Um, but my question to you is if somebody else tried it,
Hmm.
and even if their times were better than yours, let's say they ran in 3.5 hours,
Yeah.
but if they flew first class, wouldn't
Hmm.
there be an asterisk near their record?
I think so. I think
Yeah,
actually it's funny. I was with a bunch of people for dinner last night, and they're like, I thought you actually flew business class and had lie flat seats so you could sleep in between. And I thought, but that was not the challenge. I think actually it would make it easier. You
yeah,
had to really think about, you know, not laying down, not having the normal rest
yeah.
period. How do you recover? And, part of my recovery was plants, you know.
Right.
I
Now, you had
leveraged,
gone on a plant-based diet how long before this 6 day
oh yeah,
marathon?
13 years before that.
13 years before.
Yeah.
Now, there's no way you could have done this if you were eating meat because then you would have been able to eat the airplane meals.
Yeah. I think that so the inflammation was the battle, right? And I think, when you're plant-based, you don't have nearly the kind of inflammation that you would typically have in this concentrated period. You think about there's probably harder to put more stress on a system in one week than what I did. Like
Right.
everything was stressed because you're trying to eat, you're trying to run, you're trying to write about it, you're trying to maintain positivity. Like the whole thing is like,
And you're jet lagged.
yeah. And going from, yeah, because you're just continuing, like it just doesn't stop. And so you had to find ways to reduce inflammation. So I drank a lot of water. I did wear tights underneath my pants on the flights at night, like compression tights to keep the circulation going. Uh, I have a generally positive attitude, but everything I focused on that week was about positivity, and it was like I didn't dive into emails and everything. I was actually really trying to stay in this sort of inspired state. And so that was the way to make it happen. So yeah, I think if you made it easier, I think it'd be amazing for you, but it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. Well, I think this record will hold for a long time. It's up there with like Lou Gehrig's consecutive games.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I often feel that as a kid who grew up in the Bronx and started with a pretty humble beginning that if we went back at almost any time in my life, you would never imagine that something like this would happen in your life, right? And, to your listeners, I often think that I'm just a regular guy who made some different choices and who was willing to be curious and put themselves out into the world in a way that others are not willing. And that's not a judgment one way or the other. It's just if you want to have these experiences, we can construct this for ourselves. And you can actually, like, I raised money for kids to get technical degrees in Guatemala because, we need more people to be programmers and they had a lot of issues in high school. So we raised $85,000 for that, which was fun as well. And so it was, yeah, it wasn't possible until it was.
Okay. Now, 14 years before this accomplishment, you went plant-based.
Mm.
You write about that just briefly in the book. Um, what was it that led you to go plant-based?
If I think about it now, like I have 10 reasons why like I would never go back. You know, I gave up alcohol so 20 years ago, and the 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 debate that everyone would have is if you had to have a drink or eat meat, which would you do?
Huh?
And I don't really want to do either.
Right.
I probably would have a drink before I would eat meat again. Like it's
Yeah.
that deep inside me. But the initial came from back to this why, like your why. Like if you have a why, making decisions is easy. And my why at the time was I was trying to be an extremely competitive Ironman athlete in my age group, not broadly, because I was probably 50 years old at the time. And no, a little younger, 45. So um, I found that my system was struggling when I was eating meat products to digest effectively and to recover with how much stress I was putting on my system. Because I was doing 20 to 24 hours of exercise a week. I was CEO of a software company that was struggling. I was traveling every week and I had to find ways. I wasn't sleeping a lot. I had to find ways to reduce the strain. And I went through a journey like a lot of people go plant-based, take out the beef, take out the chicken and the turkey, take out the pork, then, take out the dairy, then take out the fish. Like I didn't just turn it off one day. I was just like working my way through. And each time I did that, I was like feeling better. My digestion was better. I was feeling more vibrant and I had better power on the bike and on the run.
But how did you know to make that transition? What made you do it?
Well, there were a few athletes at the time, like Scott Jurek, who was vegan ultra runner of all
Right.
time, probably. And he was publishing that he was able to do this, and I was somewhat intrigued. Now, he went really fast to it versus like my journey took me a couple of years. Uh, and the reason it probably took me time was, everyone should know this, right? Sometimes the cultural objections, my family would still say to me, "Don't you want a piece of chicken?" Or my mother, we grew up in an Italian family and all we did was eat meat. And, I at first was having a hard time because I was letting her down, I felt, And then I realized, no, but this was about me taking care of myself. And so it took me a little while to get there. But that was the first sign that I saw was you could be a high performing athlete and not eating meat. And so I thought maybe I should experiment. Let me give it a try. And it's like, oh wow, you know, it's like you can't know until you do something. You can only imagine. And when you start doing it, then yeah. I think the other thing was that it opened up like other foods that you never touch. I find it really interesting that the diversity of food is so great, but if you're a meat eater, your diversity of food is very limited. And so I loved like, falling into sweet potatoes. I've been eating broccoli probably every day for almost my whole life. And it's like such a healing plant. And
Yeah.
just like all of it was just like mind blowing what it was doing for me.
You wrote that for something like 5 years in a row, you had the same lunch every day, peanut butter and jelly with a side of broccoli, and I think there was something else,
Yeah, an energy bar.
an energy bar. Yeah.
There's two parts to that. One is programmatic nutrition helps, right? I wasn't trying to make decisions. I knew what I needed, the level of protein, the level of fiber, the level of vitamins. So once I figured out, the second is that it actually makes your life easier. Like, in a world that I live in, pretty typically, it's the 168 hours I have in a week, the 24 hours I have in a day are almost all accounted for in some way or another. And if I can take some stress out of the system, then it's better for me. So I didn't have to think about or shop differently. It could be just very easy. Like lunch was breakfast and lunch were, pretty similar. And so the only variability was dinner. And so I just made simplification, which improved that part, and then the mindset got better and then the health got better. And so I didn't know how good you could feel until you started making these choices. Now, it was somewhat coincidental with stopping drinking alcohol. And that was another one. I'm like, oh my God, wow, you could feel this good? Like it just seemed that we put ourselves under such strain. We don't realize that ultra processed foods make us feel bad or, you know, any of these elements. And as you start to change it, you feel like uniquely privileged. You're like, wonder why other people don't want to feel this good. Because it's not a secret. It's pretty well known. Of course, since being plant-based, I also do care about the animals and the way we treat animals, and all that matters to me too. I think that the impact on the earth is so far greater than it should be. I don't think everyone will one day be plant-based. I am not a believer that's going to happen, but we all can do better every day. And I just like to role model a behavior that says you can live the life I do and eat this way. And, sometimes people still ask me, like, why? I'm like, well, if you could feel this good, then you should. You know,
Uh,
it's a simple answer. And they're like, oh, fine, whatever.
Now, when you went plant-based, clearly your endurance improved as an athlete. Um, were there any other health changes that you discovered?
Well, I had, when I was growing up, a bit of, I don't know, let's just make up, I had something called colitis. I had a lot of gut issues. I'd eat foods and I'd be in the bathroom in a minute. All that changed. And I
Mhm.
have this just very regular system that just is beautiful every day. Uh, I
So
stopped.
all the you went plant-based what in your 40s?
Yeah. Yeah.
So all this you had suffered for years and it all
Oh,
changed
yeah.
in your 40s?
Because that's what we're supposed to do is suffer, right, Glenn? This is what we're taught. Like I was
Yeah.
suffering in work. I was suffering in the rest of life. I wasn't fit. I was making money. Everyone thought I was successful. I had the
Uh-huh.
fancy car and the big house, the country club, and
Are
you
you a family man?
yeah, married still, miraculously, 37 years later. I have two
Wow.
daughters who,
Uh-huh.
are amazing. So I think in that setting, we had a great life, but I was not showing up well. I lost my sense of humor. I couldn't sort of take it easy. I was always like sort of trying to outwork everyone else and think that this was the sort of the path to some kind of
Hmm.
success.
Were,
And
were you overweight?
no, not really. Probably
Hmm.
didn't look, I mean, I probably weighed 7 to 10 pounds more than I do today.
Hmm.
Uh, but I couldn't do a push-up or run a mile. I couldn't do anything.
Hmm.
Really, maybe you could play volleyball or
Hmm.
softball casually, but nothing
Uh-huh.
at any performance level. So I'm sitting on this, engine and it's not maintained. It's like your F1 car in your driveway that just sits there and rusts. Sort of a silly
Uh-huh.
idea. And uh, so yeah, I did suffer through that. I think many people do. We sort of think it's okay because that's what we're here to do is to provide. And I think we're missing the core point of living.
Yeah. Well, you write about how you should go big, have big goals and challenge yourself to achieve great things. And I found myself reading that thinking of my father. My father just wanted to be a family man, just
Mm.
wanted to provide for his family. I grew up wanting to be a playwright and have plays on Broadway. You know, I still want to have plays on Broadway,
Yeah.
which is why I became a vegan because I'm going to have to live to 140 before I ever get any plays on Broadway.
All right.
But I grew up with these big ambitions. Who knows? Maybe in part because my parents said something along the way that inspired me, or maybe not. I don't know. But my parents themselves didn't have those big ambitions. They just
Yeah.
wanted to raise a family and be good parents. So, do you have to go big?
No. I think you just have to know that you can. That's
Uh-huh.
all. I don't like my parents are the same. My dad was a social worker in the New York City schools, and my mother was a school teacher. And, they didn't do any of this, what I do, but they came from the Depression era and they made a pretty good life for us. And I
Mhm.
think the human system knows how to evolve and to thrive. And so it's there and available. That's my point in go big or go home. It's not that you have to. I just think some of us don't believe we can. I think we think
Mhm.
that other people do that. And I think that I'm trying to encourage you if you have that in you. And by the way, Glenn, it doesn't matter really in your history or human history whether you produced that play or not. You have turned on that system in your head that says, this is how I want to think. It's made you more creative. It's sort of opened the aperture of your life to think that this is a possibility. And so that's the starting point. From where we go with that is up to us. But the bad part is to leave it dormant. The Comfort Crisis is a great title of a book because you don't need to read it. But just sitting on the couch, we can survive there. But surviving is not what, humans are supposed to do. We are built to thrive, whether you have spirituality in you or not. This is the way our system works. It responds very well to stress. And when we put stress on it, our muscles get bigger, our neurons get better, our, overall neuromuscular system will work. All of this is what happens under what we call stress and failure and suffering, these words that we create antagonism with, which are actually the pathway to the life, whatever life you want to have. And so that's all of my message is. It isn't that I'm better, maybe I'm different. But I want to just open our eyes to say that the possibilities are take the word can't out of your language. Not that you can't. You may not want to do it, that's fine. But if you want to, it's available. And if you have a little bit of patience and you adopt my mindset, which says have the courage to make a commitment to consistency, then you can get to mastery. And that is a worthy endeavor in our lives.
Now, you write that failure becomes your superpower, that you could reframe failure as fuel. So, talk
Mhm.
about that.
Well, first, I have a bit of an objection with the language that we use and the words and the way we think about them, more broadly than just the word failure, right? I mean, there are lots of words that create antagonism, and then we respond with our primitive sort of fight or flight, and cortisol goes up and stress is high. But if we framed failure, like the best example, right, is if we go into the gym and we work with weights to failure, it means that we've gotten to the peak capacity of our muscle group that we're using. And then what happens at that moment is the brain signals and says, oh, you're putting stress on that muscle. I need to build more so that you can actually pick that up. And so the building process starts. It's the same with learning. If you don't know a concept, then the neurons start to create so that you can understand the concept, so you can use it again and again. So these failures are just moments on a path of growth because we are a very efficient system. The brain works on 20 watts of power, less than a light bulb, but it doesn't run all the time. So we run systems that we need to respond to how life evolves. And so failure is the moment when we go from our current capacity to say we need to trigger the growth capacity to kick in. Otherwise, we don't kick it in because we don't need to use the energy because we're this highly efficient system. And so if we start to kick into that, then yes, we need more nutrition, better nutrition, we need more sleep, we need a better mindset. All of these are the contributors. Oxygen, like these are the things that actually create the opportunity to do more.
In the
It's
book, you call them the five pillars of health.
Yeah. And they don't have to be like this is the irony of life is that because of where we started as sort of primitive beings, where we had to survive, to now where we have abundance and we're thriving, we can operate in both states. So you can sit on the couch and watch Netflix and not maximize the system because it was made to survive, to sit in the cave while someone was hunting for food, using as little energy as possible. However, we don't live in that world anymore. So that state is not actually optimized for us. But when they got out of the cave and they went hunting, we were endurance athletes back then. We used our navigation techniques. We were pretty darn smart. We figured out how to do this.
Also, it's easier to go hunting for blueberries.
Absolutely. Sure. Completely. And so if we come to today, then this is about trying to think about that these signaling systems of discomfort and failure and what we might call suffering are noise. We got to listen for the signal. And the signal is that something beneficial is happening to us, and that the noise is actually just as if heat is coming off of you as you're sweating. That doesn't mean it's bad, it means you're actually cooling yourself. And so I am all about reframing because if you only react to the noise, then you stop and then you never grow and then you never reach your potential. Now, I know some people want to or don't want to. I don't know if I should judge any of that. All I know is that human potential is infinite. We're not going to find the ends of our potential in the lifetime that we're going to live. There's more that we sit on every day. And instead of buying a lottery ticket, invest in yourself and you'll find remarkable results.
Okay, good advice. Now, in addition to that different philosophical approach to what is called failure, there is discomfort. And you talk a little bit about embracing discomfort in the book.
Yeah, I've learned to love it for a couple of reasons. One, if you thought about, like, just say listen to music for a second. Listening to music triggers a feeling inside you that can make you happy or sad, or you feel something. So we listen to music because we want to feel something. If we think about discomfort as feeling something, this is an opportunity for us to feel something we might not have otherwise felt. And so my best way of just telling people is like, if it's pouring rain outside, walk out in the rain without an umbrella. Feel the rain on you. Feel what that feels like. This is a feeling just like any other feeling. It's a privilege to get to feel it. It's actually going to tell you something deeper about yourself and the human system. And so I seek out discomfort because I think that it's actually a place where I have a richer palette of feelings that other people haven't had, but they're available to all of us. And so discomfort is like this asset that I want to put to use rather than one that I want to keep in a box and never use. I like the utility of life. Like if you had a lot of money, there's a point where there's no utility to the money anymore. And so I would like to actually, if you had more, then use it. And if you have more system, more capability inside yourself, then we should use it. This is seems like a pretty normal kind of concept. But what we do is we think of that discomfort as something negative rather than something to experience and appreciate. Like I think this reframing is why I feel like I've had this, sort of incredible journey in my life. I'm not better, I just do more.
Now, when you talk to your family about embracing discomfort, do they buy that or do they think you're nuts?
I probably a little of both. I mean, I wrote in the acknowledgments that they tolerate who I am. And I think they have also believed that they're not going to try and change me into being something else.
Mhm.
And so, just this past week, Glenn, I did a race called the Badwater 135. So it's 135 miles through Death Valley. It's one of the craziest, sort of, they say the toughest foot races in the world. And you need a crew.
You 135 miles of running
Yeah, through Death
in
Valley.
Death Valley?
Yeah.
And this is on purpose. This isn't punishment for any crime.
No, no, this one you have to apply to and get selected and want to be part of it.
Wow.
Uh, and but the only way you can actually do this is to have a crew that comes along with you, and they ride along in a van and they go up the road 2 miles and you run 2 miles and they come and support you and replenish your water or give you ice or something. But so my youngest daughter was the crew chief and my wife came, and so they saw me in some pretty raw states of, of suffering and discomfort, and they were there to get me to the finish line. So they appreciated what I wanted to go do and helped support me on the pathway there. Uh, and they are willing to say, we might not want to do that, yet we're here for you. And that's, beautiful for me, to be perfectly honest. Like I couldn't find a better
Do
scenario.
any members of your family want to do crazy things like you do?
They do less crazy, but the girls are getting into ultra marathoning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've done 50K races themselves.
Wow.
They're good outdoors people, good rock climbers, uh, mountaineering. We've gone up, done ice climbing together. We like to adventure together and you know, like last year we went ice climbing, it was 20 below, and we're standing out there for a day and you're next to the ice and you're like, this is sort of cool. Like just to get to feel this. And back to my story, like so they've grown into it. I wouldn't say when they were teenagers they loved the idea, but now they've seen what's possible. Yeah.
Wow. They're saying, I want to be like dad. I want to embrace discomfort.
Yeah. Because they've seen that really, in fact, what had happened with me is that it's never been destructive. It's only been accretive. So I did this race last week. My recovery has been, I would actually say, remarkable. I'm back out running. I feel great. I'm, you know,
What
excited
was
about
the
life.
temperature like in Death Valley?
Hit higher 120 in a
You're
low of,
running in 120 degrees
yeah,
on purpose?
yes, sir.
Wow.
Mm. And it got down to 95. So,
Now, I have never gone running in 120-degree weather. Um, but there's one part of our journeys that meet, which is we both went plant-based along the way.
yeah.
And in a sense, we both initially came to it for health.
Mm.
In my case, it was because all my relatives were dying of heart attacks when I was a teenager.
Oof.
And in your case, I take it as just because you didn't, well, you had those digestive issues and you
Mm.
just didn't feel like you were in optimal health, right?
Yeah.
And you wanted to boost your health for endurance. And both of us, having come to this diet for health, then also felt better about our relationship to the animals.
Yeah.
And for me, it was this sense that I always had, even as a child, that it seemed crazy to kill animals in order to eat them. And I remember eating chicken as a child and being disgusted by it, those
Mm.
bones. Did you feel that way too? And did you just kind of put up with it because it was normal?
I think I did put up with it because it was what everyone else did.
Yeah.
There was this moment before I went plant-based or was started contemplating. I had the easiest one was to eliminate the red meat in the beginning. That was very easy. Uh, I was in Bentonville, Arkansas, and there's Tyson Foods, and there are a lot of chicken barns there. And I went and visited one, and I was horrified. And that was sort of like the nail in
Was
the
it one
coffin.
of those warehouses with 30,000 chickens
Yeah,
stacked together? It's just extraordinary that anybody would imagine doing that.
right. So that part really got to me. And then, the math on it also, like how much, Like we have enough calories in the world to feed everyone 10 times over if we used all plants instead of fed all the plants to these animals that are turning it into
Right.
protein. And I always thought like we have why have we said that there's no protein in the world other than the metabolizing of plants into protein because the plant like it just we've just told ourselves all these stories. So that was another part of it, which is that this whole system is completely inefficient. If it was
Right.
perfectly efficient, maybe someone could justify it. And then
Right.
this other crazy thing happened was we were working on a project for Gateway Computer up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and across the street was a meat packing plant. And people would go work there and then would have to leave and come back to work at Gateway in the contact center because they couldn't do the job. So I'm like, okay, like what part of this system is good? Like it was everything that falls apart.
Yeah. It's the
And-
most dangerous work in America,
right.
and the meatpacking industry is notorious for hiring undocumented children
Yeah.
to work the most dangerous jobs in America. And you know, it's just it, along with the other reasons for going vegan, for your health, for the
Yep.
animals, for the planet, how about for the workers too?
All
Because
of it.
this is
Right. That's
just
my
the
point.
worst work in the world.
It just all adds up. Right. That's why I said like I have so many reasons that you couldn't like just unwind one of them, right? Like yeah,
Right,
it's too many reasons.
right. But you went into your 40s
Yeah.
before those reasons caught up to you.
Yeah. And I think culture has a big impact on us. What we're
Yeah,
taught when we're kids is what we sort of copy throughout the rest of our lives.
yeah,
And then maybe we can role model the behavior. I, you know, I do think that there's sometimes where, uh, back to the language, I like plant-based language better than vegan because I think we've created this antagonism in the world about vegans, like as if they're bad people. Like I don't understand. Like why are they bad people and others? So it seems like I have this shirt that I run in a lot and it says powered by plants on the back. And I think
right.
that's fun. Like you're running behind me and you keep reading that again and again. And that is my sort of way of trying to sort of bring people in, forget the category, think about plants. Like that's cool. And
Yeah,
so, um, but I'm not on a campaign. I want to educate if someone wants to know. And everyone gets to know what I do. My life is sort of pretty public, so it's like, all right, they ask questions, but we're not gonna, like I said to my point, it's like if we could just change 25% of what happens rather than 100, we would have massive benefits.
right. Now, how did you become a CEO, and what sorts of businesses were you a CEO for?
And it's a great question. When I was at IBM, I had spent a lot of time running very large, complex projects for when I was there as a job as a global retail head. And in that, I got to meet a lot of investors in different ways and capacities. And so in the early days, it was investors that I knew who said, could you actually, in the beginning, it was like, could you come help bail out my company? And so my first one was a, a food ordering platform in called Exit 41, and the guys at Fidelity owned it, and I knew them, and they said, we could use your help. And I thought it'd be sort of interesting to see if I could be a CEO. I didn't really, I wasn't like back to all these things that I've accomplished, like whoever imagines that, like I didn't. And I'd say the first couple of years were pretty hard because, like, do you know how to do that job? What is that job? Like, and how do you make decisions, et cetera? So, Uh, but once I got good at it, I sort of started to understand that what I was good at was taking sort of like the proof of concept and turning it into a market-based product and finding the customers and building the company. And so it's mostly been software companies for the 6 times that I've done it. I did take a detour in 2017 and created a nutritional supplement company using plants, roots, mushrooms, and herbs
What was that
for
called?
performance tea.
And
And
does it still exist?
no, sadly, the pandemic killed us.
What happened to it?
Yeah, well, we were selling mostly to natural food stores, and they all closed for the better part of 18 months.
Ah,
And I didn't have enough capital to very quickly change to the online world. The online world got very expensive very fast, but it was a an extract powder. And Glenn, I try sometimes, you do things that are good for yourself, but I said, I don't want to put any sugar in this. We don't need more sugar in the world. Well, now you got yourself isolated down to a few Americans who don't eat sugar. Didn't matter how good the benefits are. I still use it when I do my racing. You know,
that's amazing to me that people want their supplement powders to be sweet.
oh my God. I at one point started selling, like trying to give, even this was not vegan, but I was like to use honey sticks, put honey in it then if you really need to do something.
Yeah, but of course that wouldn't be vegan.
No, but my product was plant-based, but other people were going to use it. It wasn't just plant-based people. This was for everyone. So uh
Now
so I
you
did
said it was
that.
called Performance Tea,
Yeah, that was because it
T
was
as in testosterone.
TEA as in green tea.
Oh, TEA as in green tea.
So it had a foundation of green tea extract and then anywhere from 2 to 10 other ingredients that we used with our formulator. All of it was extract powders. So all you had to do was open up a little stick and put it in your drink. We had one called Energy, one called Focus, one called Endurance, one called Balance, and then we had a sleep product. And they all delivered pretty strong benefits because plants can do that. It was how I got around the 6 continents was using our energy product. I drank it every day, and it really helped reduce the cortisol levels and the stress that I was under because that's what reishi mushroom can help us do. And I did it for 4 years, and then, like I said, the pandemic created, sort of like the bullet in the head thing. Then I went back to software, and I've been running software companies ever since. I did do 4 years running a health data management company, trying to improve the health system in the country, which is another intractable system for us to work through. Like we have three big systems that not work in our favor: health, education, industrial food complex. Those three are not optimized except for the top 1%. For the rest of us, they're really antagonistic at the end of the day. But I've worked on, yeah, mostly software. And then, my writing and my keynote speaking and my coaching is always sort of a part of what I do in addition to running these software companies.
Are you running any companies now?
Yeah, yeah, it's called Rainmaker. It's an AI platform for small businesses to sell better. So
How
help.
long has this company been in
It
existence?
started last June, so it's about a year old now. It's Rainmaker, RAYNMAKER.ai. And, our goal is to try and help small business owners achieve the American dream, which is to run a business that can pay for their life and their family.
So, so do you have a background as a software engineer?
I was a pretty bad programmer early in my life,
Uh-huh.
but I've been working in tech for 30 years. Yeah. I think I think it's a bold statement if I was to say I was an engineer. I would say I'm a good strategist and a good marketer and a good architect. Um, but I leave the building of the software to others because my 2 or 3 years of programming told me that others were better at it than me. So
Hmm.
I moved into the more sort of strategy side, architecture side, and it's been fun since then.
So how is Rainmaker doing?
Yeah, we're doing very well. We have 150 customers. Our customers are in the home service, like so we have maid service and then uh, pest control. We have gyms and a variety of different kinds of things that we call it like a considered purchase, something you want to buy, but you still want to talk to someone. We're using AI to help score and route all of the customers' leads and then help them close those opportunities, build up software, all autonomous over time so that it can run, and all you have to do is deliver the service uh, and collect the money. So it's a good opportunity. There's tens of millions of small businesses in the US have a hard time selling their products. So our
And so
goal is,
this company helps them use AI to sell their products?
yeah, we use AI to actually run the workflow from getting the lead to closing the sale.
Now the skepticism towards AI, or the negative view of AI, is it will replace humans in the
Mm.
workforce. Um, what do you say to that?
We want humans in the loop all the time. So
But is there a risk that AI will be taking people's jobs?
I think that technology reframes a lot. We don't have toll booth takers anymore, right? Taking coins, we use RFID in our cars to go through a toll. So I do think that there are some jobs that change and go away over time. I don't think we're going to stop that. But we're pretty creative, and throughout history, we've had a lot of technology shifts, and we still have people in the mix. We like to say that AI will never live and only humans will, so we still will always need humans in play. And so humans in the loop do matter to us. I have quite a few people working here, and I don't have some intention to, you know, get rid of them all and just use tech.
Uh, I'll tell you the moment when I got scared of AI. I had written a screenplay.
Hmm.
Um, not a comedy, but it had a few elements of comedy in it. And the fellow I wrote it for, it was sort of a fictionalized um, uh, biopic of his life. He said, "Let me run this into AI and let's get a screenplay review from AI."
Hmm.
So we got the review, and it was a pretty positive review. And AI seemed to understand my screenplay. And I said, "Well, that's not a bad. The AI isn't a bad movie critic here, but it's relieving to know that at least it didn't pick up on any of the humor." And my friend said, "Well, let's try that. Please analyze the humor in this screenplay." And then I got scared as I read. There was delicious irony in this comment. I thought, AI is finding delicious irony? I think this has gone too far.
Yeah,
So
I think we
I
still need.
worry about it a little bit.
Yeah, I think that there's lots of things we should keep our eyes open about. I mean, there's a chance for bioterrorism without AI, right? But we've paid attention. We did create nuclear bombs and we've sort of done our best not to kill each other. And I think that for the best part, we should be able to make AI help us be more productive, maybe share the abundance that we have in the world more easily, and put enough guardrails around it so that we can be productive humans. We don't want to be pets of robots and we don't want to let go of the steering wheel here. So, you know, I'm confident that we'll find a good path. There may be some bumps along the way, but I have a strong positive belief in humanity that we'll do the right thing.
It seems to me that you would be a good fellow to have in government. Have you ever been interested in working in government?
I've been told that quite a few times. Um, I feel like sometimes it's not as productive as I could be trying to build from the sort of the commercial side of the world and role model the behavior and show people the alternatives that we don't have to sell our souls just to the profit dollar, that we can do things that are good for people. We were just talking about it this week, which is, we have a maternity program that's very generous for our employees, even though we're a small company. But who cares the most about it are the females who were mothers and are not going to have children anymore. They love it. And so we want to show that we can make better choices all the time. And I'm not sure that in government we get the chance to do that enough. But I do like getting my voice heard. I did write probably a month ago, like a speech that I would love to give at a political rally that's not a political speech, but it's about a human speech. It's about these stories that we need to tell and the way we need to think and the way we treat each other and creating social contracts that allow us to have the best life possible. And so I work on that every day. I write about it every day. And my hope is that I don't get run over by a bus, meaning I don't control how, we leave the planet. But I have every intention. My dad's 95 years old, and I have every intention to have a strong voice for the next 30 or 40 years so that But that's how my choices to live are going to give me that opportunity so that I can bring this more intentional and hopefully inspired story to the world so people start to live better.
Joe, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. The book, hold it up again, is called Living Intentionally.
Here we go.
The website is thehighperformancelife.net, right?
Yep.
And
It'll be
people
for
can
sale on Amazon on August 4th.
on sale on Amazon August 4th. So look for that, and hope to see you around, Joe.
Thanks, Glenn. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Take care.